Well, thank you, colleagues. Welcome to the Global Coalition to Address Synthetic Drug Threats. This is Working Group 1. My name is Brian Morales, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you for one more meeting. I want to start at the outset by thanking all of you for your dedication and participation over the past year, along with our INL team, in particular, Sarah Finmore and Bill McLinn, who have been working full-time on the Global Coalition, along with the technical moderators as well, Connie, Henke, and Cyril, and all of the interpreters and the state language services, and Patrick Tapia as well. We're very grateful for the team effort from the INL side and from the State Department side. I will share just a few announcements to get us started with today's session. First, I want to share that this is the final meeting of the coalition working groups and sub-working groups, but it is not the end of the coalition. This is the end of year one of the coalition's work. So today, the co-chairs will be looking at what has been accomplished over the year and provide us with some guidance, some vision for the future, some ideas to think about. In the second hour, we will have a presentation by the director of the new European Union Drugs Agency, EUDA, Alexis Goustiel. So please stay on for that. And for the rest of the year, we are looking at a few things that we're going to discuss: a UN General Assembly side event. We will have the release of a year one report. We will have regional events as well for the Global Coalition. And we will begin our concrete operational lines of action and have meetings of different organizations as well. So let me start off by the UN General Assembly event, which is coming up. On the margins of the 79th UN General Assembly High-Level Week, the US will be hosting a side event for the Global Coalition to recognize the work accomplished to date by the Global Coalition and mobilize further action to tackle synthetic drug threats. To demonstrate the importance the United States places on this issue, we anticipate that President Biden will host this event. With that in mind, we are seeking participation from heads of state from countries participating in the coalition and encourage countries to send their highest representative to participate in the event. The invitations will be going out shortly once we finalize the event's date and time. And with the invitations, we will circulate also a pledge for countries to take action within their own jurisdictions. We hope that this is something that your countries can support. I'm going to discuss this pledge a little bit more. I'm going to read the text of the pledge for the benefit of interpretation verbatim, and then I will also share with you how you can access a copy of this so that you can share it as well. Launched in July 2023, the Global Coalition to Address Synthetic Drug Threats is an international effort to counter the global threat posed by synthetic drugs like fentanyl. Under the auspices of the Global Coalition, over 150 countries and international organizations have joined forces to disrupt the illicit production, distribution, and sale of synthetic drugs and their precursors, and the criminal networks that traffic these drugs, detect emerging drug threats, and promote public health interventions to promote and reduce illicit drug use and associated health-related problems. In order to further these efforts, we, the following undersigned coalition members, pledge to take the following actions within our own jurisdictions. 1, to regulate all synthetic drugs and precursor chemicals placed under international control by the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drugs. 2, to review relevant policies, regulatory, and legal authorities, identify gaps that impede the effort to effectively address the synthetic drug threat, and take appropriate actions to close those gaps. 3, to expand public-private partnerships in the ongoing work to secure supply chains and disrupt drug trafficking, including by encouraging know your customer best practices and protecting against illicit activity within the chemical, pharmaceutical, shipping, consignment, mail, social media, and financial sectors. 4, to share relevant information regarding suspicious shipments or trafficking of drugs with the appropriate international and regional entities. 5, to develop and expand mechanisms to monitor real-time data on trends in illicit drug use and commit to share that data as appropriate, regionally and internationally. 6, to expand quality, access, and availability to treatment and other public health measures, including overdose prevention medication, to protect against drug-related illnesses and deaths, and expand training for the public health workforce addressing substance use. And finally, to support, as appropriate, international capacity building efforts consistent with available resources and authorities. As mentioned, we hope that your governments will be able to support this pledge. It is located on our coalition website. If you go to Subworking Group 1.1, once you've logged in, you will see that I've posted it there just a few moments ago, and you can download the Word document attachment. Okay, so what is left to accomplish with the coalition? We need to now move on to operationalizing our actions and initiatives in the second year. As we've discussed in previous meetings, that means collective meetings where we all come together, and we've conceptualized a donors conference and thought leaders. We will continue consulting with you all in terms of other meetings that may be necessary and recommendations for those. I know that co-chairs of Working Group 1 have been discussing coming together in a second meeting. Also, regional meetings, international organizations will be helping us do that over the coming months. And then very concrete lines of action that we're looking to finalize those discussions today in terms of what some of those might be. We will have a formal list published for those lines of actions on our website in the coming weeks following the discussion today. And then we will be inviting all of you as members of the coalition to participate in these different lines of action to the extent that in your professional capacity and area of work, you find that helpful for your goals. As always, we have the Global Coalition website, but you'll notice that on the right-hand tab, we have replaced meeting schedule with upcoming events. And for the next year, I would encourage you all to check in with this part of the website regularly, because there you will see the upcoming events, such as the UN General Assembly event that we discussed, a Middle East drug dialogue that will be coming up, an African Union consultation, and you'll see the dates for those, as well as the email addresses. If you are interested in participating or would like to learn more, we can share with you information to make sure that whether it's yourself or someone from your government, that your nation is represented in these different events. So with that, I'm going to thank you very much for your time. We have a very busy schedule today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn it over to our co-chairs, beginning with co-chair of Working Group 1.1, Subworking Group, Devin Naker from South Africa. Over to you, Devin. Thank you so much.
Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Brian, for your introduction. I'm aware we are on a extreme time schedule, and therefore would like to take this opportunity to focus on a few important issues going forward into year 2. Much has been achieved in year 1, but much more needs to be done. We have learned through the information shared in the Global Coalition that operationally the production and the distribution of synthetic drugs have evolved rapidly, fueled by advancements in chemistry and globalized supply chains. Addressing the clandestine production of synthetic drugs and new psychoactive substances crisis requires a multifaceted approach, combining law enforcement efforts with public health initiatives and international cooperation. Enhanced surveillance and intelligence sharing are crucial for the disrupting the supply chains of synthetic drugs. From production to precursor chemicals and finished products. Implementing early warning systems to detect the rise of synthetic opioids use and new psychoactive substances can also play a crucial role in mitigating the crisis. These systems can monitor trends in drug manufacture, identify new substances entering the market, and provide timely information to both law enforcement and public health officials, enabling a more proactive response. We have established that law enforcement agencies should implement a dedicated office for the tracking and tracing of listed chemicals in collaboration with the INCB. This office must have consistent and regular interaction with the chemical industry, as it is essential for the various entities in the supply chain of this industry to understand the risk of diverted chemicals and the consequences of non-compliance. This office must ensure the industry members implement internal-based practices, which include detailed records of the trail of chemicals and the immediate reporting of suspicious transactions. International collaboration and cooperation with the chemical industry is vital in this fight, as the synthetic drug crisis knows no borders. Countries must work together to regulate precursor chemicals and share intelligence on trafficking networks and coordinate responses to emerging threats. When sharing information on any new psychoactive substances and leveraging the collective expertise and resources of the international community, we can develop more effective strategies to combat the production of these substances and protect public health. In speaking about international cooperation, I want to highlight two notable industrial-scale clandestine drug laboratories cases in February and August this year in South Africa. We seized almost a ton of crystallized methamphetamine and over 100 tons of chemicals and multi-tons of equipment. In the process, arresting 14 individuals, including 3 members of the Mexican Sinaloa cartel. The response from some of our members from the global coalition was overwhelming. The DEA, for example, sent down 2 teams of forensics experts on Mexican meth production and a team dealing with Mexican organized criminal syndicates associated with meth production. The United Nations INCB's encouragement and guidance with regards to the precursors and equipment also needs to be recognized, that were seized at these 2 labs. Noticeably, points were that both super labs were initially set up by expert chemists, but were operated by workers following a detailed set of instructions. The synthetic routes and starting chemicals, which we found were new, we could identify the synthesis through that. These were simple precursors which were used to produce the intermediate precursors, predominantly P2P, and the final product, crystal methamphetamine. And as we all know, a clandestine lab is a complex crime scene, and analysis do not have the option of sampling everything. The reaction vessels are full with mixtures of toxic chemicals and many under pressure. The process of such a scene is formidable and dangerous. The insight provided by the DEA specialists provided crucial guidance. Such knowledge is only obtained through experience, and once again, we are reminded that global information sharing and assistance is not just important, but absolutely vital. As the global coalition goes into year 2, we have a unique opportunity to lead and enhance these efforts and make a significant impact on this pressing global issue. Thank you, Brian, and I look forward to the next chapter.
Thank you so much, Devin. Very much appreciate all of your support and guidance and work over the past year. I'd like to move through all of the co-chair statements first, and then we'll open up the floor. So thank you very much, Techno, for raising your hand. We'll come to you in just a moment after we've heard from the co-chairs. So next, I'd like to turn it over to Andrew Cunningham from EUDA, also 1.1 Subworking Group co-chair. Andrew, over to you.
Thank you, Brian. I just want to check that the audio is good.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah. Okay, great. So first of all, I'd like to echo Brigadier Naiker's words and I fully support what he has said. From my point of view, I'd like to mention that from the initial set of 7 recommendations that came out of our sub-working group, we distilled these into 4 thematic areas: engagement with industry, operations, capacity development, and legislative responses. These topics were covered in those monthly meetings over the summer and also in the meeting of chairs and co-chairs held in Greece in June. And the Brigadier has already mentioned the engagement with the chemicals industry and the focus on investigations and operations, and I'll focus on capacity development and legislative responses. I'd like to use the limited time here today to focus on 3 main things. First is the use of existing tools and platforms. This was a theme that came up time and time again in our meetings. There's a vast array of initiatives already available on this topic, and the Global Coalition has documented these, and they can be accessed on the Global Coalition website, which is a really useful resource. The best chance we have to enhance the global response to synthetic drug manufacture is to increase the submission, use, and exchange of actionable information and operational cooperation through those existing online platforms, such as those managed by the INCB. And here, of course, we're talking about the PEN online system, the precursor export notification system for the substances in tables 1 and 2 of the 1988 convention. We're also talking about PICS, the precursor incident communication system, and of course, PEN Online Lite as well, that deals with substances that are not included in the 1988 convention. If the participants in the Global Coalition can commit to using these tools more extensively, we can make huge steps towards preventing the illicit manufacture of synthetic drugs. Second, I turn to capacity development. And it's clear that some countries are in a stronger position than others when it comes to their level of preparation for dealing with the synthetic drugs threat. Here we're talking about improving the capacity and equipment of laboratory and law enforcement personnel to raise stakeholder awareness, including by sharing and updating international alert lists with relevant law enforcement and judiciary stakeholders, and to enhance the identification of and detection of synthetic drugs, including their precursors and designer precursors. We're also talking about improving the investigation and dismantling of clandestine laboratories through the development of appropriate frameworks, promoting the use of safe handling techniques, including, importantly, through increased access to naloxone, which is obviously the medication used to reverse an opioid overdose, and also technical assistance for law enforcement, forensic laboratories, prosecutors, and also judges. This broad area also includes capacity building on the disposal of chemicals and national disposal plans. It's imperative that authorities can safely dispose of or otherwise repurpose precursor chemicals to prevent diversion and the risks to the environment and to our communities. And the UNODC's Laboratory and Scientific Section are currently running a number of work programs in this area. Last but not least is the legislative response. It's already been mentioned in the pledge, I hear from Brian at the beginning of this message, but it's clear that the implementation of international scheduling decisions, while sounding elementary, is a fundamental element that can be improved, and we can act together to support countries to help them act on scheduling decisions. Actions that can be taken at a national level include national legislative options for scheduling that can be adopted in advance of international scheduling decisions to respond to national crises. The UN Toolkit on Synthetic Drugs module that's called Legal was noted as a key reference source here. Our working group considered that we should also look at scheduling approaches that more rapidly address designer drugs and precursors and facilitate the review of scheduling of substances on a class or family basis, in particular for those substances which are purposefully made to circumvent the list of controlled substances or substances that have no known legal use. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the initiative of the organizers of the global coalition to have the chairs and co-chairs from the East and West sessions to meet in Greece. This really added a new dimension to our work, and it was clear that to be truly a global coalition, we need to think globally, but act locally. At that meeting, in between some stunning scenery and great food and new acquaintances, some key principles emerged that we should bear in mind as we move forward. It's already been mentioned, but we really need to make more work more closely with the chemicals industry if we have to make a real good impact. We need to do more groundwork and mapping exercises to establish baselines and effectively measure what we intend to do in the global coalition. We must not recreate the wheel. A lot of good practice already exists, and some of that just needs to be implemented on a wider basis. And we also need to create a sustainable model for working on this critical issue of the synthetic drug threat, including at a steering and leadership level as we move forward into the second year of the coalition. So with that, I'd like to pass back to the chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for that very complete summary as well. Now I'd like to turn it over next to Subworking Group 1.2 co-chair, Michael Alexandrowicz, for his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian, for giving me the floor. My name is Michał Aleksandrowicz. I was already announced by Brian. So I have this privilege to be the co-chair of Subworking 1.2. So I have also prepared some words which I would like to direct to you all regarding the work that we have done within the last 1 year. So as we come to the end of this very productive year of Subworking Group 1.2, it's my honor to summarize our efforts and accomplishments. Our group has been steadfast in this mission and to build the capacities of states all around the world to counter the trafficking of synthetic drugs, a threat that continues to challenge security and public health on a global scale. But before we delve into our achievements, I would to take a moment to express my deep appreciation for those who have been instrumental in our success. My sincere thanks go to my co-chair, George Pasiakos. George, working alongside you has been a privilege and a pleasure. Your insights and expertise have significantly contributed to the progress that we have all made. I also would like to thank to Mr. Kimball and Mr. Koma for their leadership, and I must recognize also Brian Morales, Asma Fakri, and Sarah Finmore. Their handwork behind the scenes ensured that this initiative was smoothly implemented. We truly owe much success to their dedication. Subworking Group 1.2, as a part of Global Coalition, has been at the forefront of efforts to enhance global capacities to counter synthetic drug trafficking. Our work has been directly aligned to the coalition's overarching goals.
I am sorry, mister. I'm sorry.
Poland, the country.
We cannot hear.
Yes?
Your connection is breaking up. I am sorry, the interpreters cannot hear you. Perhaps if you turned off your camera, it would help with the connection. Thank you. Apologize for that.
Kyle, can you hear us? Are you with us?
Yes, I can hear you now. Perfect. I can see you, but all right, okay. It seems like it works now. So as I most managed to finish, I would like to underline that Poland, through its leadership in the European platform EMPAC NPS synthetic drugs, has also played a pivotal role in this global effort. Our work has been deeply connected to the goals of the Global Coalition, and together we have created a synergy that amplifies our joint impact. One of the key areas when the synergy is most evident is our approach to the cross-border cooperation. Through the EMPAC platform, we have conducted several successful operations, such as Operation OSA, which dismantled significant drug synthetic opioid trafficking network. This operation has been strengthened by the coalition's global reach, enabling us to share intelligence and coordinate actions across continents, also with the support from the Europol. Moreover, our efforts also target the chemical supply chain as a prime example of how European initiatives can integrate with global strategies. The Impact Platform's works in mapping of the chemical industry and disrupting of the supply of precursors aligns perfectly with the coalition's objectives. This alignment ensures that our actions are not isolated, but they are part of a cohesive global response to the synthetic drug threat. Another area where we see a strong synergy is also the application of innovative technologies. The M platform has been a forefront of integrating tools like the artificial intelligence or the blockchain verification into our strategies. These kind of technologies are also being promoted by the Global Coalition, demonstrating our shared commitment to leveraging innovation in our fight against synthetic drugs. Our shared goals also extend to the training and the capacity building. Through the Impact, we have delivered already numerous training sessions to law enforcement across Europe, equipping law enforcement officers with the skills needed to combat synthetic drugs effectively. These efforts are complemented by the Global Coalition training initiatives, creating a well-prepared force ready to tackle these challenges on all fronts. We have also in the front of us several training activities which are still going to be organized in October and November as a part of continuation of the work under the coalition, especially with our counterparts from Moldova. As we move forward, it's crucial that we continue to build on the synergy between the Impact platform and the Global Coalition. By aligning our tools, strategies, and resources, we can fully ensure that our efforts are not only effective, but also sustainable in the long term. In my closing word, I would like to reiterate my gratitude to everyone who has contributed to the success of the Sub-Working Group 1.2. The work that we have done together has laid a strong foundation for the future, and I'm confident that with continued collaboration, we'll make even greater strides in the fight against synthetic drug trafficking. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michał. Very much appreciate those words. Let me turn it next to the other co-chair from Sub-Working Group 1.2, George Pasiakos from the United States.
Thank you, Brian. As stated, my name is George Pasiakos. I'm with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. I'm the Assistant Director of Field Operations in New York. And again, I would also first like to thank and take the opportunity to thank the co-chairs, Mr. Kimball and Mr. Kuma. I would also like to thank you, Brian, and Asma, Sarah, Bill, and Emma for all the organizing, planning, making this process extremely smooth process. You truly are wizards behind the curtain that make everything work. Of course, I'd also like to thank my counterpart, Mr. Michael Alexandrowicz, who I have also enjoyed listening to. His experience, his insights, and his knowledge of the area over the past year have been very impactful to Sub-Working Group 1.2. Yeah, I'm truly grateful to have been given the opportunity to collaborate around such wonderful people, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Sub-Working Group 1.2, trafficking synthetic drugs, focused on building state capacities to counter the trafficking of synthetic drugs within countries, across shared borders, and around the globe. Participants in this group heard presentations designed to provide them with the tools and the knowledge necessary to do so, including countering the trafficking across land, air, and sea ports, and other points of entry, such as postal systems, communications, and with information sharing with other states and more. I believe our group over the year met that mandate. Each month we heard from several countries and their efforts on combating synthetic narcotics. As I stated, at the 6-month point, we found in this group pockets of excellence exist around the world. We see many countries are employing the same techniques, tactics to combat the flow of synthetics. And I was unable to attend the meetings in Thessaloniki, wish I could have, but I did read all the paperwork that was sent out on the meetings, and from what I read, it was clear that there was significant overlap between Group 1.1 and 1.2 in some of the efforts. And so they agreed to combine some of the recommendations. And I, of wholeheartedly agree upon the next steps that came out of the meeting. So as I've read the discussions and the recommendations going into year 2, I believe they're 100% in line and going in the right motion. So the obviously organizing our global efforts, working with the chemical industries and the manufacturing, establishing the baselines. Don't recreate the wheel. I couldn't agree more. We have organizations out there that are already working on it, the ICMB, the World Customs Organization. Create a leadership structure. I thought that was interesting. I thought, perhaps a rotating schedule, such as what the EU has, where each country has some buy-in. But I would also like to better monitor the supply chains. I think that I can't state that more. I'd probably focus that effort again in the chemical supply chain, but particularly the small package and e-commerce portion of that supply chain. With respect to looking at manufacturing companies and the chemicals, I believe that recommendation to map out the industry globally was a good recommendation. I think that would be very helpful in that supply map as a starting point to mapping out that supply chain. So the establishment of the working group focused on the pharmaceutical chemical industry to prevent the illicit manufacturing aesthetics will be, obviously, I think to me, that's the most important recommendation going forward. The other recommendations are all definitely going to help, but that one is at the systemic root of the problem as opposed to treating the symptoms of the problem. I would like to give you a quick success story on that particular topic in the supply chain. Well, it's half a success story from the United States. Late last year, we were looking into supply chain of a certain chemical manufacturing company and shipments, which inevitably led us to China. That's not a surprise to anybody in this working group. It's not a surprise to anyone who wasn't in the working group. However, what did surprise us was how the chemicals were grossly mislabeled, then transshipped through different countries and utilizing the speed and the volume of air cargo, which, as we all know, has ballooned since the pandemic and the rise of the Amazons, the Alibabas of the world. The lack of a verification process for these commodities and the sheer volume has caused incredible problems with enforcement around the world. The success part of the story was that we worked with the third countries and stopped the flow of precursor chemicals that were being used to make the synthetics. However, the failure is now we have no idea where the chemicals are traveling to now. So we closed a door and we opened another. The root of the problem is that we just do not have a good handle on what is being shipped globally. We rely on the honor system, and the e-commerce small package shipping is being utilized by bad actors. Imagine if the same were true in the passenger airline industry. We'd have September 11th type events every day. And yet, what we have with the number of illegal synthetics and precursors moving at the pace of overnight shipping, this has killed as many people in 1 year as 25 9/11s. And I say that as September 11th approaches, and I sit on the footprint of the World Trade Center. We need more accountability, and we need to know exactly who is sending and who is receiving packages. So engaging industry and law enforcement is just a piece of that pie. We do have to promote, as my colleague said, the technological advances that are being made that can help, such as artificial intelligence, the cryptocurrency, and the tracking of. Blockchain verification is something that I think a lot of people are working on these days to verify different things, and information sharing through a blockchain with separate verifiers. I think that works globally very well, and something we should really take a look at going forward. And all of which these technologies are going to have a big role, I think, in solving some of the issues we face, especially in the e-commerce section. As I mentioned earlier, I think all the other initiatives are fantastic. I think improving the forensic and clandestine investigation capability, lab investigation capabilities, the disposal of chemical drugs, very important. I did learn that some countries are having a lot of trouble with that. and improved systems to to rapidly schedule new precursors, I think is very helpful as a law enforcement tool. But again, these are the tools that we'll use to treat symptoms of the root problem. To close, I would simply say the solution to combating transnational organized crime is transnational organized law enforcement. And these are the first steps we're taking today on the way to that goal. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very much appreciate all of that support and guidance and wonderful ideas. Thank you, George. Now we move on to the working group co-chairs for working group 1. We have from Cote d'Ivoire, Yao Kwaku Ronsard Kuma. I haven't seen him in the list, but I'll just take a pause and see if maybe he's there under a different screen name. Okay, then I'd like to turn it over to our other representative. We have Mark Putnam here representing DEA as Working Group Co-Chair 1 from the United States. Mark, over to you. Thank you so much for joining.
Hi, good morning, Brian, and good morning, colleagues. I'm not sure if my camera is working, so forgive me for that if it is not. If it is not, then I'll just go straight audio. Can anyone see me?
We cannot see you.
All right, so that's technical difficulties. That's okay. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to each of you in the Global Coalition, and I hope that this finds all of you doing well. As Brian said, my name is Mark Putnam, and I come to you this morning on behalf of the Drug Enforcement Administration and also on behalf of our Chief of Operations, William Kimball. Mr. Kimball is not able to join us this morning. He is attending a graduation ceremony at our DEA Training Academy for our 61st class of diversion investigators. For DEA, diversion investigators enforce the Controlled Substance Act and the Chemical Diversion and Trafficking Act of the United States with regards to manufacturing, distribution, dispensing of legally produced controlled substances and listed chemicals. And they work to prevent the diversion into the illicit market. So his absence today is important as we are embarking on a new generation of diversion investigators that work not only within the United States, but globally with DEA's footprint. They're responsible to make sure that there's an uninterrupted and adequate supply of pharmaceuticals that are available to the legitimate needs of our communities. So I just wanted to say that it was such a pleasure and an honor to meet and engage and collaborate with many of you in Thessaloniki, Greece. I really felt that there was a lot of thought-provoking conversations, ideas, concepts, and initiatives that were discussed. And these words from Greg from New Zealand ring out to me. Less hooey, more dewy. And I liked that, right? And I see Brian smiling because it was more about less of our words and more of our actions. And I really believe that that is what this next year will be for us. We've had a lot of discussion. We've had time to think about ideas and initiatives. And I just want to thank real quick Brigadier General Devin Niker and Andrew Cunningham, to Mikhail and George, Sarah, Bill, Emma, Greg, for all the work that has been done. And if I forgot anyone, please forgive me. But I laughed as I listened to all of the comments this morning, and much of what I wanted to say has already been said. I feel like we are just reiterating it. In the coming year, there's many tasks that still need to be handled, and more conversations have to occur, but we have to put those into action. We talked about establishing baselines, conducting mapping exercises, better understand where our capabilities are so that we can assess what training and technical exchanges still need to occur. We must be about the business of capacity building our partners and allies across the globe as we exchange ideas and as we improve our own best practices. For DEA, we're encouraged by increased cooperation, specifically with the PRC and the MPS since November of 2023. We're not fully there yet, but advancements have been made that are improving our operations, our global investigations. And so as we look towards a source country that produces the precursor chemicals that are affecting all of our communities, there is opportunity for us to engage, collaborate, and to move forward. Andrew said it, and I had already written it in my notes, but this idea of global, right? Global and local. What we do globally has a local impact. And so thank you, Andrew, for sharing that concept, because it's absolutely true. We discussed not recreating the wheel, reinventing the wheel, but we must leverage those existing platforms, tools, and resources and find more effective ways to integrate this technology before we talk about creating something anew. As mentioned before, simply getting more countries to input that information into the INCB's law enforcement tools and platforms, that serves as a force multiplier. And that hits directly on what George just spoke about, right? Transnational law enforcement, right? We become the force multipliers as we talk throughout our global coalition, our chairs and our co-chairs, the members of this coalition, we become the force multiplier. Force multiplication is a concept that is so important to not only DEA, FBI, HSI. We utilize this task force concept routinely. We have to leverage all available resources to be the force multiplier. I still like this idea of bringing together interested stakeholders from within our ranks for an in-person meeting where we can tabletop exercise with our subject matter experts in various areas to identify where the deficiencies are after we've established a baseline of what we have available to everyone. I know that Greg, our colleague from New Zealand, has mentioned that we have to work back the supply chain, right? We need to focus on where those seizures occur, work back to our brokers and transporters, all the way back to the origin of manufacturing. And then that goes right in line with knowing our customer, know your customer. And we need to force this idea and improve upon the know your customer legislation. I was thankful to hear Brigadier General Niker mention the lab seizure in South Africa involving the Mexican cartel, suspected Mexican cartel members, and that we were able to send out a few of our senior forensic chemists to work alongside the South African police for a technical exchange, capacity building, exchanging best practices. This is a great example of being able to pick up the phone, reach across the globe to our partners, and then come together for a common united purpose. And that's really what it comes down to. The Global Coalition brings us together to work as a united front with a global purpose to improve our local communities. This crisis will not go away if each of us try to handle it on our own. And that's why it's important to DEA that we're fully committed to information sharing and working collaboratively with our law enforcement partners to lead investigations globally and work with our host nations and other host nations. DEA recently launched a program called the Trident Directorate, and it brings together law enforcement, military, intelligence communities, and a unified whole of government type approach to combat the fentanyl crisis and the synthetic precursor crisis. And so I'll just close with this because, like I said, much has already been discussed. When we work together, when we add all of our available resources that we have and provide it to the global community, we're an unstoppable force. And I wanted to thank George again for highlighting the magnitude and the importance of the lives lost due to this crisis. And so what we're doing has an impact on our globe. So thank you. I'll yield back to Brian. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of DEA and for Mr. Kimball. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you to all of our co-chairs. This is a collection of experts from around the world, of leaders that have really guided us over the past year. And yet this is half of that leadership group. The other half is in the East part of the world. And for those interested to listen to those remarks, 14 hours from now, we will have this session in the East region. So you're welcome to join if that meets your schedule. I want to, normally at this point I say, let's pause the recording, but I'm not going to say that. As it is our last meeting, I'm going to open up the floor and welcome colleagues to share with us additional thoughts, additional reflections, things that we can sort of document for the future of the coalition, to get sort of on record visions and reflections on the past year. And I'll just open up the floor. I think there was also a hand from before. If you could all just raise your hand, I'll call on you in the order that I see it.
Brian, I don't know how to raise my hand, so I'm just gonna speak since there was a gap. So, good morning, everyone. If you can hear me, my name is Greg D'Alessandro. I work on Brian's team. I had prepared remarks today, and all the speakers before made me feel smart because they stole all my talking points. But I do want to thank you all for the excellent summary. I just wanted to make some comments that I thought were really important to sort of jump on. One was George's references to success and failure. You know, I'm a U.S. diplomat, and my last assignment was in Embassy Beijing. And we had a great deal of success when the Chinese decided to schedule fentanyl as a class. And everyone was very excited about it. But as George so astutely noted, when you close a door, you open another. And we saw that the transnational criminal organizations stopped making direct shipments of fentanyl, but then started working precursor chemicals, routing through different supply chains. So, you know, we don't work in a vacuum. The situation evolves, and so we need to remain one or two steps ahead. The second thing I would say is, and I think most everyone touched on this, is we do have a plan going forward. We talked about mapping exercises, ensuring that we don't recreate the wheel. And I do think that we have an opportunity in the next couple of, in the near future, to sort of decide what are the next steps. Are we going to have, do we schedule another virtual meeting followed by an in-person meeting? Do we decide what mapping exercises that we're going to implement? Are we going to establish the steering committee? Make sure that we get the right experts in the right room based on the lines of effort that we're going to pursue. So those are just some things I would think about as we move forward. I would just recommend for the group to consider. And I see when I was out in Thessaloniki, I helped facilitate the conversations on Working Group 1 with my friend Asma. So I don't want to throw you under the bus, Asma, but I know that you have thoughts on this as well. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Other comments or questions or thoughts?
Brian, if I could take the floor.
Please, Michael.
Follow me. Thank you very much. So, dear colleagues, during my speech, I have say a few words in a nutshell regarding this few years of work under the Global Coalition. But I also wanted to inform you about the bust that we have made, and in the last months, because this information was very freshly announced to the media in the last week about the joint operation that we have handled together with our colleagues from the Ukraine Counter-Narcotic Department with the support of the Europol and Impact Synthetic Drug Platform. So this operation led to dismantle of large synthetic opioid cartel, which was responsible for the production and trafficking of large amounts of synthetic opioid called methadone. Methadone is the synthetic opiate used in the medical treatment of the persons who are abused from the heroin, but it is also illicitly manufactured in a different places all around the world. Within this operation, we have dismantled a huge laboratory on which we have found more than 195 kilos of methadone. These laboratories have been located in Poland and in the Ukraine. We have arrested 7 persons, including the leader of the group. But what is most important, this amount, so 195 kilograms of methadone, could kill instantly at least 4 million people. So by disrupting this kind of production facilities and also the trafficking channels, because later on this synthetic opioid was disseminated all around Europe. So we have saved more than 4 million human lives, which we believe this is really something very important. I know that the colleagues from the Ukraine, they are also participating in the global coalition, so I'm very glad. And I also would like to send the sincerest gratitude to the Ukrainian law enforcement agencies, in particular the counteracting drug department, for this great operation that we have done in the last month. Thank you very much also for giving me this floor for this small comment and gratitude for the colleagues which we cooperated with.
Thank you, Michał, and thank you. Congratulations. That's an incredible achievement. Thank you very much. Let me turn it next to Mariano.
Gracias, Brian. Voy a hablar en español, espero hay interpretación. Bueno, yo celebro que estemos reunidos los 3 grupos, ¿no es cierto? Es decir, yo fuertemente pertenezco al grupo 3, que es el que vendrá a continuación, pero quiero hablar ahora en el grupo 1 y 2, porque es muy importante el 1.1, 1.2, y también porque la contribución de que haya menos droga disponible es tremendamente importante para que haya menos consumo. Y ese es un concepto que lo tenemos que tener todos muy claro, porque a veces disociamos lo que es la persecución de las sustancias y la restricción a las sustancias como algo absolutamente lejano a que eso significa que hay menos droga disponible para que haya menos consumo. Yo tengo la impresión que el grupo de reducir la oferta, por supuesto, y después el grupo de mejorar la información también es tan importante, porque a veces estamos hablando mucho de la sustancia, pero a veces tenemos que relacionarla muchas veces con esa sustancia que se consume y el impacto en nuestro capital social, que queda tremendamente afectado. Entonces, probablemente lo que tendremos que conversar con estos 3 grupos es esta interacción de cuánto un grupo ayuda al otro. De hecho, vamos a tener que conversar cómo la información, cuando tenemos información de las sustancias que están en el mercado y que están disponibles, también tenemos que tener información de cuánto de eso que está ocurriendo se está consumiendo y en qué lugares se está consumiendo, para que no hagamos políticas en salud pública y sociales a ciegas, porque creo que todavía estamos haciendo muchas políticas ya con las víctimas, llamémoslo así, con los usuarios, a ciegas. Y creo que eso también es un tema crucial, porque tenemos poca información todavía y yo celebro menos droga disponible y más información de consumo. Esa es una reflexión que creo que tenemos que tener estos 3 grupos, porque esto es la forma no solo de enfrentar el problema de las drogas sintéticas, sino que es la forma de enfrentar el problema mundial de las drogas. Y creo que esto lo está revitalizando. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mariano. I'll turn it next to Asma.
Brian, thank you so much for giving me the space. I won't take more than 1 minute just to circle back to what Greg was saying. It has been an absolute pleasure being the IO Secretariat for Working Group 1.1 and 1.2. And what has really been quite inspiring is the incredible effort that you, Brian, and your team, Sarah, Emma, everyone on the INL team, and Greg, that has really pulled together an unbelievable effort in such a short period of time. You know, the issue of synthetic drugs is not a new issue. It's something that the world has been grappling with for years. But your effort by pulling together the coalition and these sub-working groups have really helped others from all different parts of the world to connect, and on very concrete thematic areas. So kudos to you and your team. It has not been an easy thing to pull together, but the impact and the results that you've had, you can hear that in the passionate statements that everyone has been sharing so far today. And also in Thessaloniki, it was a pleasure to meet all of the working group co-chairs from East and West. And if there's one piece of advice that I would say is, let's try to keep all the co-chairs together from East and West, because there was a wealth of knowledge, expertise that reflects all the regions that came together in that meeting in Thessaloniki. And it was a very precious moment to see connections happening across the regions, many that are already happening, but further strengthened, further elaborated, and some very concrete actions that can be taken by this joint co-chairs team. So I'm happy to host the next co-chairs of 1.1, 1.2 coming together here in Vienna, and more so continuing to work with all the co-chairs on 1.1 and 1.2 to take those ideas that they had from the very simple activities that we can pull together and turn them into concrete results for the coalition and all the members. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Asma. Thank you for offering to host. That is a recommendation that came out of the last one, and I've heard from the co-chairs, particularly Working Group 1 co-chairs, that there's a desire to continue in-person meetings to have that connection. As we come to the conclusion of this meeting in just a minute, I once again also want to thank and reiterate my appreciation for the co-chairs, for the IO coordinators, for those that have supported this process, all the presenters that have helped us throughout the year with all of this content. I think we have some important ways forward. I think we heard of those recommendations in the call today. The next steps for this working group will be an in-person meeting of the working group co-chairs. We need to further identify within the lines of effort that have been discussed. Are these all? Do we have additional ones? How do we start operationalizing these lines of effort? As we've said, this past year has been about building the vehicle. Now we have to drive it toward our destination. We have to now operationalize the work that we're doing to then have real outcomes for the coalition. This is not just talking and learning; it's now doing. Very much in the Hui Dewey analogy of our New Zealand co-chair. The industry line of effort is one that we'll have to discuss, and how to break that out by industry to make it effective. As we've said, there are 7 industries. Each one has its own kind of strategy, its own constituency. We have to work on that. In terms of operation, investigation, and tools, we absolutely need to hear from the people that are using these tools, how to make them more effective, more relevant, more useful, more accessible. And we need to see what some of the barriers have been toward adoption. So I think there's a lot of examination of how to make those impactful. In terms of operations, we are looking with World Customs Organization, Interpol, and others to see how we have a global operation that can have impact that is global and within the next year on synthetic drugs. In terms of legal responses, as you know, we have the International Network for Legislation on Drugs that UNODC and OAS-CCAD will be launching shortly in the coming month. I see Asma and Antonio here on camera. Thank you both for your leadership on that. There's a lot of legislation that relates both to supply and demand and data collection. So we'll have to prioritize and see how we bring that to fruition. And in terms of capacity building, finally, the question is capacity building for who? We talk about law enforcement as one kind of overarching monolithic kind of organism. But in fact, I'm very attracted by that phrase, transnational organized law enforcement. I think we need to see which are the specific communities of practice within our networks that that are our customers, that are our partners, that we have to work with intensively, and what each community of practice needs. There are the canine units, there are the postal inspectors, there's the forensic toxicologists and chemists, and there are just so many different types of networks. And I think that grouping these and strengthening these individually and prioritizing which of these we support with what tools will be kind of a way to go. And we'll see how what we have with the international organizations, with the international partners, can be better harnessed and connected so that it's most relevant directly to those constituents to help them do their jobs better. We have a tremendous amount of architecture that has been built. We're not here to replace the work that has already been done, but to promote it, champion it, and then build on top of it and look for new innovations that we've been missing, like this legislative network. So with that, I'd like to thank you all. We're a minute over. I'm going to ask the technical moderator to stop the recording.